everybody's favorite conservative in New York, Christopher Wright, here to present you with a quick sit back and chat with a fellow patriot here. His name is Mark Foley. He's running for District 5 in Manhattan. We are here at the Metropolitan Republican Club, one of the oldest clubs in all Manhattan. And we got our good friend and fellow patriot Teddy Roosevelt watching me over us. He's a former member here, so we're gonna keep the history going. And I kind of want Mark to kind of tell you a little bit about his background and how'd you got in this position.
Sure. So my background is in business. I'm not a politician. Always been interested in politics, of course, but living in New York, the joke used to be, well, look, I live in New York. I could never get elected to the city council, let alone anything else. So lo and behold, I'm running for city council. What happened was, really, I just got fed up. I saw the city changing. I've been here for 36 years. I saw it change over the last 18 months and really undo 36 years of work that brought this city back. It was about a year ago, I was watching a Zoom meeting, a candidates forum with some of the current electeds, and it was all about the flavor of the month, which was defunding the police, bail reform, which bail reform sounds great, but bail reform means having zero bail.
Yeah. You might go a little more specific than that, because people who aren't from New York might not be familiar with the whole bail reform situation, but us here in New York have been really affected by it.
Okay, so this came about a couple of years ago. It was actually instituted by the governor with the support of all the Democratic politicians, state and local. And they decided that it was racist to have cash bail because some criminals were poorer than others and they supposedly couldn't make bail, but I mean, bail was always predicated on the person's means.
Right. I think it's almost racist to kind of assume somebody can't make bail because of a certain skin color. Like,
well, they're actually basing it on skin color. I mean, that's really what happened. Right. So they just decided to drop bail completely. And what could possibly go wrong? And one of the elected officials, who is still in office, was just so condescending. And she said, "Oh, you don't understand what bail is. Bail isn't supposed to punish people. Bail is just supposed to make sure that they show up in court."
Wow.
Well, why would you show up in court with zero bail, so you're not risking anything, and a DA who's not going to prosecute you? And then this woman had the nerve to say, and your eyes are deceiving you. Crime has not increased. Well, I read the paper almost every single day. Somebody who's been let out, or just committed their fifth felony in 2 weeks because they've been let out of jail, on all the others. I think those 4 extra crimes are an increase in crime.
Right.
So, bail reform, we have to put pressure on them to bring back common sense bail. We have to get the refunding for the police. They took away $1 billion last year. And again, they were all supporting this one candidate, actually, whose term limited out, but the seat that I'm looking to take over, he bragged that he voted against it because it didn't defund enough.
Wow. You guys hear that?
$1 billion on a $6 billion budget wasn't defunding enough. Now, one of the first things that went was the plainclothes anti-crime unit, which is responsible mainly for 2 things. One, keeping guns off the street. Remember, guns are bad. We've been hearing this. We have to get guns off the street.
Yes, for years.
And also patrolling the subways. So what has happened in the last year or so is that we've seen shootings and violent crime on the subway skyrocket. The 2 things that this undercover unit, plainclothes unit, was in charge of, was taken away from because we had to defund the police. Could anybody not see this happening?
It's really foolish. And people forget also dispatch got affected as well.
I mean, so many did. And then look, the neighborhoods that are most affected by this, by illegal guns on the streets, are minority neighborhoods. Is it really fair to them that if you talk to most people in the neighborhoods, they don't want to defund the police?
Mm-hmm. And those are the people I hear a lot of when they do the videos and interviews. They go into the inner city areas and interview people. They're like, no, that's crazy. Don't do that.
Exactly.
It's like people you see in in Manhattan, Ritchie part of the neighborhood. They're like, oh no, don't defund the police, and they don't have to deal with it firsthand. So of course, from a distance, they can say defund the police all they want. But when the crime comes, they're not going to be the ones to deal with it.
It sounds great in the Oberlin faculty lounge, with a bunch of social justice warriors.
Oh yeah, the SJWs, gotta love them.
But look, Practically, it has not worked. We know that. We need to refund the police. We need to restore. We need to reform, and we need to respect, because they're there to do their job. They want to work, and I'm being advised by several current and former police and detectives. One of my main advisors is an active NYPD sergeant. His name's Joe Beatrice. He's the co-founder of Blue Lives Matter NYC. And these people are the first ones to tell you that the old cliche is true. Nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. And they believe reform is needed. They're open to a conversation. They're open to do it. They want to do their jobs. How frustrating do you think it's going to be for them? And look, we've all seen the videos. People, in their face, swearing at them, spitting at them, F you.
Crazy.
I mean, for 8 hours straight. And the restraint that they show, I think, is just incredible. And they still, when something happens, they're the first ones that these people will call.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. And that kind of leads, I'm glad you brought that up, because that kind of leads to my next questions is, if you are elected, or when you are elected, what issues specifically do you want to address? I know you kind of mentioned the back to blue kind of situation, anything like that.
Right, so refunding the police is number one, street safety, quality of life, and small business, Upper East Side economy, 2 and 3. So both of those are somewhat predicated on street safety. So if we don't bring back a stronger police presence, I mean, look, we all walk the same streets. We look out the windows. We can see crime. We see people not congregating the way they used to. We talk to people every day. They're afraid to be out there. We see homeless people who have just taken over street corners. Who it's not just that they're sleeping there, but they're belligerent. They're violent.
Yeah, mental disorder. Seems like you see one.
And 98% of them have substance abuse or some sort of mental health issues. It's not fair to the neighborhood. It's not fair to these people. They're human beings too.
I agree.
That's no way to live a life. Just sleeping in the elements, soiling yourself, and getting in violent confrontations with imaginary people and real people.
Right. No, I agree.
So we need to help them. That will make it easier for businesses to thrive. That will make people want to travel. That will bring back foot traffic. We have to continue to help the restaurants. We need to do that with other businesses too. Since COVID, roughly 30% of small businesses have folded.
Yeah.
And
they're not coming back, guys. I mean, it's like a ghost town in some areas here in New York now.
And it's horrible. So, small businesses on the Upper East Side, people have this image of the Upper East Side, this hoity-toity walk around. It's really a bedroom community with a lot of mom and pop stores. And these mom and pop small businesses, a great majority of them are opened by minorities and immigrants. So they've played by the rules, the land of opportunity, they've saved their money, they've put everything into it, their heart and soul. They open a business and then it's closed. They didn't go out of business, the government put them out of business. And we need to help these people too.
I absolutely agree. And it kind of reminds me of what New York is built on. If you look at the history of New York as a state, you see that it was built on a lot of immigrants who came from different parts of the world that came to this country that was built on our back. And the small businesses were something that's thrived, back in the 20s and 1910s when they were coming over here. And it's just part of New York's economy. And for that, you see right now after this whole quarantine situation where a lot of these small businesses aren't opening back up again. And so many businesses have been family owned through decades and generations of family members.
Yeah, no, it's heartbreaking. I mean, I grew up, my grandfather was an immigrant. He came over from Italy in the 19-teens. He ended up owning a small business. And they worked, they sacrificed everything, and they were able to make it. And we've taken that away from what could be a generation of people. It's not right. We can and will do better.
Yes, I totally agree with you on that. Now, I just wanted people to know, because a lot of people from New York that have been here for a bit period of time, but even some people who are newer from New York now, or people who aren't never lived in New York, can you tell them what the difference is between New York pre-Giuliani and then post-Giuliani?
Sure. So look out the window. This was New York pre-Giuliani. This was New York 36 years ago. Crime was rampant. Some neighborhoods were no-go zones. Times Square was a nightmare. It was I'm from Massachusetts originally. The red light district there is called the combat zone, and it was a combat zone. It was open drugs, prostitution, crime. The city turned around and the city was called ungovernable and unmanageable. Giuliani did that in his first 4 years. Times Square turned into a tourist spot. You have to be here 36 years ago to know what kind of a joke that would be to say that we're going to turn Times Square into a tourist spot. But it was, and the city was safe. And look, I came from a small town, so when I came here, I asked around, and I got here in '85. So the city was not quite at its worst like it was in the 70s, but it was very sketchy. Parts of the East Village you definitely wouldn't go to, Alphabet City. And I asked people, what are the safe parts of the city? I'm a rube from out of town,
Right.
But the understanding was that if somebody mugged you, you'd hand them your money, and you probably wouldn't get stabbed or shot.
Right.
Now, the worry that people have is that they're not going to get robbed, but somebody's going to come up behind them and bash them over the head with a brick by somebody who's mentally unstable and doesn't care about their money. So, I talk to so many people that feel the same way. Excuse me, people are afraid to take the subway. One, they don't have the police presence that they used to, so there's more crime, and there are fewer people, so there aren't that people there as a deterrent. So if you go to and from, wherever, and you need to take a cab, that's adding $30 or $40 to your night out. It's a lot of money. Most people can't afford that, nor should they have to.
Yeah. New York doesn't make it easy,
It doesn't make it easy. And that money they're not spending on the subway is revenue that the city is losing. So it's a lose-lose.
It is. It really is.
And again, stems from safety and police presence.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. I totally agree. And what's your thought? Another big conversation point right now in New York is people talking about the vaccine mandate and mandatory passports and everything. What's your thoughts on that, and what do you say on that?
I don't agree with it. I'm all for people being vaccinated, getting vaccinated. I'm not for forced, a de facto forced vaccination with something that is still it's experimental. It hasn't been approved. So New York is already at a point where 75% of adults have had at least one shot, so that they're all or partially vaccinated. If you combine that with the amount of people who've had COVID and have a natural immunity that have built up to that, that's probably about 85%. We were told originally that 65% would be herd immunity and that we could go back and live our lives. We're actually regressing and going backwards. They want to re-mandate masks, and then they want to say you can't participate in society if you don't show your papers. And this was solely done at the mayor's discretion. This wasn't a team of medical experts or even the CDC or Fauci himself. This was the mayor saying, we're going to try to make it very difficult for you, so you have to get vaccinated. And I just don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, look, you have to get vaccinated for polio and all that. Yes, you do, but that vaccine is 100 years old and it's approved.
Exactly.
Proven.
Yeah, and to me, it's just weird because we've been hearing from especially Republicans here in New York, the whole radical leftists that are here that called us Nazis and all this Gestapo and all stuff like that. But the only ones I see kind of use the kind of tactics are what they're doing now with this whole vaccine passport thing.
Churchill said in the 40s, he said, the next time fascism comes back, it will be disguised as anti-fascism.
Yeah, hope you guys heard that. Very important. Very good point there, Mark. I appreciate that. And what are your thoughts on censorship of conservatives on social media?
I'm against all forms of censorship.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm running on the Republican and liberal ticket. And people say, how can you be both? I said, well, I'm a classic liberal. I don't believe in censorship.
No. Okay, good point.
If you have a better idea than I do, explain it and convince me. Don't shut me up. Don't deplatform me. That is beyond un-American, beyond what used to be liberal. Excuse me. And the other example I use for, well, how can you be liberal and conservative? Well, I also don't believe your education should be determined by the color of your skin. So the gifted and talented programs now are, in some schools, threatening to do away with a test-based acceptance because not enough minorities were being accepted. And I say, well, why would you punish somebody who is doing well to just hand it to somebody else? Why wouldn't you help that person? Why wouldn't you teach them up? You don't punish somebody else to bring about equality. You help someone who needs help. I had a conversation, it was about a month ago now. First generation American, an Indian gentleman. He was literally in tears. His daughter had been studying a year for this test. And he said now she wasn't going to be able to get into the class because Indians, Southeast Asians, are overrepresented. He said because they have to bring in more black and brown people. He said, look at my skin. I'm brown.
See, that's the thing with the left. I think they go so far left that they go in a circle. It's like now there are minorities who are being discriminated against. I heard there's something similar with people in the Asian community, how they're getting skipped over by other minorities of other race groups, and it's like, but who's benefiting at the end of the day? Like the person that you boost up who isn't properly prepared, so when they go there, they're not able to handle what they're in, or the person who's been working hard to get to where they had to get to, and they did everything right, but at the end they're told they can't, go to the college they want to.
And again, look, I'm all for, equal opportunity education. I'm all for having, extra classes to bring people up to where they should be or could be. But I'm not for punishing somebody else.
I totally agree with you on that one, Mark. All right, Mark. So last but not least, how can voters get involved in spreading the word or volunteer for your campaign or help you out and support it anyway?
Great. So they can contact our campaign directly at foleyforcouncil.com, FOLEYFORCOUNCIL.com. They can sign up, they can volunteer, give us a call. All the information is right there on the website. If they donate, if they are if they are a resident of any of the 5 boroughs, we get 8-to-1 matching funds for the city. So if you donate $10, we actually end up with $90. So it's a huge help to our campaign. And other than that, we need to get the word out. This is a winnable District 5 in Manhattan. Bill de Blasio lost this district twice. A Republican can win this district. We need you to get out and vote. We need you to get your friends to get out and vote. We need to know that we can win and get out there and turn out. Thank you.
Turn out so we can turn New York red. Hope you guys enjoyed today's interview with Mark, real patriot, Mark Foley.
Chris, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
For your time. I appreciate it. You enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you, brother.
Thank you. You too.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. All right.